Right now, the stadium.
We've lost enough people and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.
Welcome everyone with Juntos with Cathy. I'm the president and CEO for the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And every week we meet to talk with leaders, contributors, partners of the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber of Commerce who are helping to make our region a little bit better. And today is a special day. Some of you probably are realize waking up today that today is the day that everything changed. A year ago, for us, we had our very last live event where we were all together celebrating our Salud Awards, celebrating an airport event that we did with SMUD and our partners at the Sacramento Black Chamber, Sacramento Rainbow Chamber, and the Sacramento Asian Chamber. And it was celebratory and exciting, and then everything stopped. We all, came together at home and decided that we needed to care for one another by being separated from one another. And a lot of things just transpired this past year. And we've learned a lot. We've learned how to be more empathetic. We've all learned how to work virtually and deal with cameras and computers. And we've all missed each other a lot. We're all looking forward to hopefully all getting vaccinated soon so we can be together in the same room. I know that I miss hugging people. I miss getting to be excited in person with people. I miss you. And so we're going to delve into that a little bit with our special guest that we have today. And that is Rachel Rios, who's Executive Director at the La Familia Counseling Center in South Sacramento. And she has been leading this for almost 10 years, I want to say. And she has also been a leader in the fight for equity for our Latino community due to this COVID crisis. And so she's someone to me that is a mentor, a friend, and inspiring. And so today we're going to have a conversation about how things have changed, how we're going to move forward, and also find out a little bit more about Rachel. So welcome, Rachel. We're so happy to have you here with us.
Thank you, Cathy. Thank you for such a nice, warm welcome.
Yes. So, what, let's kind of start. It's weird, right? A year ago, we were all together and, celebrating business awards, celebrating accomplishments. I know that I think we both share the fact of being with, our familias and getting to hug and just, all that excitement that goes with it. And then everything started to change. And you were at the forefront. You and La Familia Counseling Center, really had to pivot a little bit more quickly than a lot of the rest of us because the communities, serve, the services that you offer. Tell us a little bit about what it's been like for you this past year.
Yeah. So early on in March, we started, we were really paying attention to what was going on nationally as well as locally, and just paying attention to what was happening. We say that we've been like a half a step ahead, but not a full step, right? We started looking at the fact that masks were something that were important and thinking like we should order masks for our staff. We should get in front of this. We started putting signs up there saying to folks, if you've, been out of the country, if you've done things like that, and then kind of preparing for this. And then the orders came in that everything was, different. We closed for a day. We met with managers and we brainstormed, how are we going to do this? Because we are essential workers and we can't close our doors. We knew that for many in the community, if we were closed, where would they go to get services? So many people were unemployed. They had no idea where they could go. All the public offices were closed. And where were they going to go? They didn't have digital devices. So we had to quickly pivot to determine how can we offer safe services for the community and keep our staff safe, but still be open. And we came up with a plan to be able to do that. We had to shift from, regular services, because, our community is very relational. And so having those in-person contacts was so important. We are one of the few agencies that still does home visits. We go to people's homes to see them for counseling services or case management services. And of course, we couldn't do that in this new world. So how could we provide services to families that didn't have digital devices? They didn't know what Zoom was. We didn't know what Zoom was. It's interesting. We look back and we laugh because we said, okay, well, maybe things will slow down and this will give us some time to kind of catch up on things and do the strategic planning we've always wanted to do. It's been anything but that, because we have had to run, throughout this process. And just as we feel that we've gained competency in one area, there's another issue that comes forward, right? We've just had to be constantly looking at what's going on in our community and how can we advocate for our community, especially during these difficult times. So it's been a challenge. We've learned a lot. I feel like we're a better organization. It's really given me so much confidence in my leaders and my team members, who are amazing and who serve the community every day. And again, with our partners, just being able to address all of these challenges.
That's so great, Rachel. You are, La Familia has been a consistent source, right, for many in the community for what? It's been almost not quite 50 years, or just about?
Almost. I think this year is our 48th year. So we'll be celebrating 48 years in the community. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit too, when we talk about services that are offered there, I'm always amazed, right? Because we hear La Familia Counseling Center, and yes, there's counseling services that are offered. You talked about the home visits, but the reality is it's much more expansive. And then with COVID, of course, it added multiple layers. But let's start with the core services that were offered, and then what you had to add to that, to get everyone through this time.
Right. So counseling services, that's our name. That's one of our core services that we offer. We are a behavioral health center, so we offer mental health counseling for children 0 to 21, Medi-Cal eligible. We create, years ago, our founders created a cultural competence when cultural competence wasn't a word or a thing, and they created these 8 principles of being responsive to communities of color in terms of wellness and mental health. Right? Think about that. 40 years ago, that wasn't something people were talking about. So I always say they're revolutionary. And for Women's History Month, we have kind of highlighted them to really just honor them, because they laid the foundation. But they also recognized that the community and individuals are part of that community, and there's other factors that are involved, right? So employment services was something that was really important, being able to give people opportunities to get jobs, because we know that was one of the bigger stress people had, is financial stress. Parenting. So we are a career center. We are one of the SETA one-stop career centers here in Sacramento. Parenting, we are one of the 9 family resource centers here in Sacramento. So we offer parenting classes, we early learners classes, school readiness, domestic violence counseling, all of those things that just strengthen families and help families be successful. And then we offer health services, right? We've been doing community health as part of the Building Healthy Communities, which means, we use the promotora model. We do health education classes, Medi-Cal enrollment. With COVID, that's obviously been, a big part of what we've been doing. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But everything we do is about kids and families. And so we offer a lot of youth programs, from youth leadership, like Youth Voice, to STEM after school programming, to working with youth that, are at risk, or as people say, at promise, young people coming out of, detention facilities. We go to the detention facility as well. So really, those are like our core programs, but everything that the community needs, right? So we will do senses, we do karate, we do, Zumba, we have a neighborhood group, Tecnosabios with our tech savvy seniors, just really wanting to provide all of the supports that communities need to be able to have them be successful and empowered.
One of the many things that you've done that I think is fantastic is that La Familia had what I call your main headquarters, correct? Right? And then you had the opportunity to expand out to what used to be an elementary school, which is now, Maple Neighborhood Center. But then you did more than that, right? Because La Familia is not the only nonprofit that's there. So how did that expand? Now you have your services, but you were able to bring a whole other array of services now to the community.
Yeah. So we have this beautiful mural that's at our main site on our gym door that says Juntos Podemos, the famous muralist Garibaldi, painted for us. And we really believe that together we make a difference. And so even at our main site, we always brought other partners to come in and to provide services, but we had run out of room. And so when this opportunity came to take over the school, we were very devastated that there were 7 schools that were closed, mostly in the South area in that year. And we just knew there was going to be a major impact for the community. So we walked up and down the neighborhood and asked the parents and the children, what did they need? What could they need to be successful in the schools they were going to go? Those kids were scattered to the winds. The survey had 16 different schools that those kids were sent to. So, think about a sense of community that didn't exist. But what families said is that sometimes they felt that their new school was okay because it was bigger and the Maple School was so small that it couldn't offer all the services. But what they wanted was after school programs. They wanted programs for the adults, the moms that were there at home, that they could get their GED or learn how to speak English. And so we were very intentional about bringing partners in that could do that. So Fairy Tale Town has the adventure play area, which is this amazing kind of pile of stuff that kids can get into and play. And 916 Inc. is an amazing organization that has this Imaginarium that really creates, creativity for kids to write and to read. And then we Highlands offers adult education for parents, and we even have a play care where they could leave their children and they can, go to school and get their GED, learn English. And then, of course, all of our other programming that we have, STEM, and then just any other kind of services that we can provide. Really, that's been the model. So community members come and they can get a variety of services in one stop and not feel like they have to be moved around. And so we ran out of space again, because, we have our partners and we don't want to just be there by ourselves. We think, again, with our partners, we're stronger. And so we've recently purchased the property right across the street from Maple, and we are looking at building what we're calling is the Opportunity Center to focus on employment and training and just other things that give community members those opportunities that we know when they have, they will be able to be successful.
That's right. And I know that we're looking forward to that groundbreaking for the Opportunity Center and hoping to have a little bit of space in there too. Absolutely. So there's a lot that's going on that you're doing over there. All that's happening, you had to increase your services, because of COVID. And there were some things that you were doing already, so it was adding to it. But there is another piece that you've done, which actually has gotten some national attention too. And that's a program that you've been doing for the farm workers. So can you tell us, how did you get involved in that? You being on, now nationally, recognized, being able to talk about this program, has that made a difference in the services now, even this past few weeks, where it seems like it's become more intentional to make sure the vaccinations are coming out, to this important group of people?
Right. So, as I said, we were doing some health services already. And as we started looking at the trends, we knew that the Promotora community health model really works. We knew that with hard to reach communities, vulnerable communities that already have fears, that have lack of access, that they weren't going to pay attention to the mainstream media and they weren't going to have access to a lot of those services. And so we really pushed hard to, one, be a testing site, because we saw that the numbers in the Latino community were, higher than other communities. And so we wanted to be a testing site where people could feel comfortable and feel safe, that they could come in, their information was going to be confidential. And so we were able to do that. And then as the vaccine rolled out, we kept saying, we have vulnerable communities that need to be able to be vaccinated. And then also working with our agricultural communities, recognizing that they have been putting the food on our table. Dolores Huerta got vaccinated last week. And one of the things that she said that was so amazing is that every time we eat, we should say thank you to our farm workers, because we haven't had the food shortages because they have been out there working throughout this pandemic, and sometimes to a significant cost to them and their families. And so working with the county and again with our partners, so we don't do anything alone. We reached out to California Human Development Corporation, who's in Galt. They've been our partner for years, and then Angels in the Field. And we said, how can we together reach our agricultural community and let them know about the services available? The state has a program called Housing for the Harvest. The housing piece wasn't quite what they planned, and we kind of knew that. We knew that our families were not going to go to a hotel and if they had vaccines, but it was a good try. They wanted to be able to offer them opportunities, knowing that our farm workers live in very close quarters with others, and that if someone was sick, they might infect everyone else. But our families were not going to leave their family members and go to a hotel. Luckily, Sacramento County recognized that and allocated resources for wraparound. So they could stay at home, but we could provide wage reimbursement, we could provide food, we could provide PPE. And, to be honest, our families were very hesitant to access services. There's a lot of fear. They were afraid they were going to lose their jobs. So we really had to do a lot of outreach to the employers to get the employers to encourage their workers that they weren't going to get fired if they stayed home for the time that they needed to, isolate, and why it was a good thing for them to do that, and that we were going to cover their wage while they were gone, while they were at home. So that's program has, starting to move forward now, in that there's more people learning about it, and our food plant processing workers are also eligible for that program.
Oh, good.
The vaccination program, now the next phase is getting those people vaccinated. And we had our first vaccination event in February, and one of the employers actually brought or paid for transportation for 30 of his workers to come and get vaccinated. And so then this next Saturday coming up, we're going to have our second vaccination event. We've allocated some of those vaccines just for the farm workers. Again, many of our farm workers won't go anywhere else. We had slots that we could sign them up in other locations, and they said, no, we're going to wait and do it at La Familia. Now, mind you, they're having to come long distance, right? They're coming from Walnut Grove or Galt. They're having to come long distance to La Familia, but there's a sense of trust that they feel confident if they come to our site. So we want to be able to go to them now. So we are working with California Human Development. We have a bus. We're working to be able to take the bus out to the communities there and be able to vaccinate the farm workers where they are.
That's so great, Rachel. So I'm going to go back a little bit. We said what Dolores Huerta said, about the importance of our farm workers and keeping food on the table. And I know you and I were at a meeting where we heard this, and it stuck with me too, that a year ago, suddenly everyone was everywhere trying to find toilet paper, right? Like, where is the toilet paper? And people are hoarding it and putting it, aside, and so concerned about it. And we never really had to worry about, fruits and vegetables, right? The food that was out there. And what would the story have been had that been reversed, right? There's plenty of toilet paper, but maybe not enough food. And would the world be looking a little bit differently at this core group of demographic workforce that was continuing to make sure that that wasn't something we had to worry about?
Right. Absolutely. I keep saying that we need to change the narrative. This community has been impacted the highest, and because they're essential workers. And early on in the pandemic, as you will recall, there were some that said, we were being infected more because we were gathering more. And I said, hey, we're Latinos. We're always going to be gathering. That's not why we are being infected more. It's because we are the essential workers. We're the backbone of California's economy. And if we stopped working, this economy would stop. And that was really proven true when the governor put out his list in the summer of the 10 most essential jobs of people who are going to work. And Latinos were either the majority or plurality in almost all of those jobs, except for maybe nursing. And so I think it's time that we change the narrative about what immigrant populations are and how much they contribute to our communities. The same thing with our food. We have disparities that are continuing as we look at this pandemic. It's not okay that our communities, were impacted as much as they were, even though they were the essential workers that were going out and working. And we know that part of that is that there's multiple workers in a family, which puts them at greater risk. There's multiple generations in a family, which puts them at greater risk. But there's things that we could have done early on. Something as basic as translating the information in Spanish. That basic. And La Familia should not have to be the one telling someone to do that, right? That should be a basic thing. But we did. We had to say, where's the Spanish information? When you have 30% of a population in a county, nearly 30%, how could we not think about that? And then think about our other non-English speaking communities that are smaller, that also didn't have that in their language, right? And so I think we've learned a lot through this pandemic, and hopefully this will help to build a better infrastructure in our public health.
You know what? I hope so too, Rachel. And I feel exactly what you're saying. I know we had a similar part when everything first started, and there were resources coming out for small businesses about where to go and what to do. And you know, we reached out to our members and hired them to translate materials. That, in fact, our website, the original COVID resources, was all done through LaGuardia translations. You know, reached out to her, we paid her, because I really believe that, you know, we pay our small businesses. And but that's what started it. Things afterwards were, people thought, oh yeah, that's probably a good idea. But originally, well, we need to have it. It's so critical to everything, you know, just for people to start getting information, which also leads me, you know, the vaccination. One of the other, I don't know if myth is exactly the right word, but one of the other things that comes out is that our community doesn't want to get vaccinated, that, you know, they're concerned about it. And we all know that, you know, through comadres or sometimes the story comes through, but I have found actually the more people know exactly what it's going to do and how it's going to allow, again, you know, for greater comfort in gathering, to be able to go to work, I was concerned that more people are saying, no, I really do want that. And I think your pop-up is a really great example that you had last month. Let me be clear for anyone listening. When this happened, you, La Familia, Latino Economic Council, you know, were there fighting to get these vaccinations. And it was 150, which I know you easily needed 100 times more for the people that needed to be there, just to show that you were capable of making this happen. So do you find that to be true? I mean, that people really do want, you know, this vaccination?
Yeah, absolutely. Really want to make sure that we recognize the Latino Economic Council, because without their advocacy, a lot of this would not have been able to have accomplished, right? They really came strong with information, with data to show why this was necessary. And you're right, you know, 150 is just a small amount. And yet we were still so happy for that, right? So, you know, because of the work that we're doing with the agricultural community, we were on a briefing call last week with the governor's office, as he has put a lot more resources in the agricultural community, recognizing the importance and the need. And one of the things that they shared was that, in fact, Latinx community, 60% of them, nearly 60% of them, were anxious to get the vaccine. That they, you know, yes, it's correct that there are some folks that have reservations, not so much with the vaccine, but maybe which vaccine. And we are working with different folks, you know, to kind of address those issues, right? But it wasn't that people weren't interested in getting vaccinated. It's that they didn't know how. For you and I, if we're looking to find out where we could get vaccinated, it is complicated, right? Like, you know, there's pop-up events that are here. How do I register? You have to have a digital device. You have to have all this information. Imagine how someone who is non-English speaking, who doesn't have access to all of that, where do they know? By the time they find out about a pop-up event, all the slots are taken. And so there has to be some intentional outreach and some information. We're putting together a page where we can say, you know, hey, community, here's where the events are for the, you know, vaccination events are for this week. And we're also asking for a consistent place. So we're asking that we have a consistent once a week vaccination event at our Maple Center, so that communities know. It doesn't have to be a large event, but just we need to have consistency, because, you know, this going to different places is confusing for everyone. So I think it is a myth in terms of that, but it's also important for us to realize that people have religious beliefs, and we should honor that. You know, we've heard things like, well, shouldn't people just be happy that there's a vaccine and they should just take whatever they get? Well, we don't say that to the Folsom community or the Granite Bay community. Why would we think it's okay to say that to the Latinx or the South Sacramento community, right? Or communities of color. I think all of us want to be cognizant that people have different beliefs, religious beliefs, cultural beliefs. We want everyone to get vaccinated. We think that within the 3 vaccines that are available, people will be able to get vaccinated and feel comfortable with their decisions. So let's give them those choices and not try and say, this is for you and this is for you.
That's right. So Rachel, not to put this all on you because we're all thinking about it now because it's been a year, but where do you think we go from now in the Latino community? I mean, we've had, what we've seen through the pandemic is, there's a lot that was amplified in disparities. I think we've also seen there's real opportunities though, to move forward and in a positive way. Where do you see us moving forward? And what are the opportunities for our Latino community now coming out of this pandemic?
Yeah. So as I said, it's time to change the narrative, right? I think that we build upon the fact that we know Latinos are contributing to our communities. We know they're the backbone of our economies, and that we, highlight those strengths, not always focus on the disparities, but highlight those strengths. In regards to the issues that we know are lacking in our communities, the gaps that exist in services and in infrastructure, I think where we go is that we really advocate for changes in these systems. We really advocate that there needs to be more intentionality towards our communities through our public health, through other areas. The Juntos Podemos really does mean, together we make that difference. And that's what's happened. Our communities have rallied together. Our leaders have rallied together to be able to advocate. That's always been something that the Latino community has, been challenged with, being able to pull together, and because we're just workers, right? We're just doing what we need to do. And this time we've had to be able to do it. So groups like the Latino Economic Council that have really championed, these issues for small businesses, for community health. I think that's where we go, that we look together for the things the commonalities that we can work on. This isn't done. This pandemic isn't done, even when we get the herd immunity. There's a new article in Cal Matters that talks about children, and the highest rate of children that have been vaccinated are Latinos at 64%. That is alarming. That is alarming that in California, 64% of the children who've got COVID and who are having, side effects are Latino. We have more work to do. We're not done. We need to look at why that's happening, and we really need to have some intentional focus on a lot of that. We've talked a lot about the health concerns. I don't want to neglect our small businesses. Here on Franklin Boulevard, we are so fortunate to have some of the best small businesses around, and we work with them all the time, talk to them. They are suffering. They are, trying to hold on as best they can. They have the same impacts as everyone else. And so I think that there's opportunity here. I want to look at that as a positive, that we've learned lessons learned on what we need to do, the work in front of us, but we can't stand back. We can't just assume that it's all going to be okay now. We've made a lot of progress, and in order to keep that and to continue, we have to continue working together.
That's great, Rachel. Well, believe it or not, our time is coming to an end, but I want to say, one, thank you so much for all the work you do, for your leadership. We gave, a lot to some of the groups that have been working with us, for the advocacy to make sure, but the reality is, it was your leadership that really stewarded us to the right way. And so I want to make sure in this format that we acknowledge that and know that, here, especially at the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber, we appreciate the partnership that we have with you to do the work that we all need to do. And for those of you that are watching Juntos with Cathy, as you know, we believe that we had the whole slogan that we did all our work under, which was Juntos Sacramento. So we really believe the only way that we're all going to rise together is exactly that, by working together. And so our hope is to come out of this pandemic stronger than we were before. And, to echo what you said, what's most important is that we don't stand back, right? As a community, now that we are really using our voice, we need to make sure that we continue to do that. So thank you, Rachel, for your time with us. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And, know again that we're always here to support you. For everyone that joined us today, this is Juntos with Cathy. We meet every Thursday where we meet with leaders, contributors, partners of the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber, people that are doing everything they can to make our region a little bit better. And so we appreciate that. As we said earlier, it's been a long year. It's been a long, challenging year. There's still a lot of work ahead to move forward from this pandemic. And there's a little light ahead though too. And we really want to focus on that. So thank you so much for joining us. And we will see you next Thursday at noon for Juntos with Cathy.
Right now, the
Stadium.
We've lost enough people and we've suffered enough damage.
In order to get rid of this pandemic, it's important for our fellow citizens to get vaccinated.
I'm getting vaccinated because we want this pandemic to end as soon as possible.
so we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
So roll up your sleeve and do your part.
This is our shot.
Now it's up to you.